Can I retire at 65 with $1 million and high inflation? Or, said another way, can I retire at 65 with high inflation and $1 million in retirement assets? Well, welcome back to the Your Financial EKG YouTube page. My name is Drew Blackston. I'm a certified retirement counselor, investment advisor representative, and I am your virtual financial advisor, helping you get to retirement, helping you get through retirement, and protecting your ability to stay in retirement. And that's what we're going to talk about today, protecting your ability to stay in retirement no matter what the economic environment looks like. I just put out a video recently talking about if you retired in a down market. What I want to talk about today is what happens if you retire in a high inflationary market. Because every client that I talk to today, literally 9 out of 10 are talking about inflation and how that inflation is going to affect their retirement. And so I want to go through inflation today, specifically high inflation in your retirement income, what that's going to do to your retirement assets. And I want to give you a really good example on the board of a client that I just recently met with. They are 65 years old. They have $1 million in assets, and their biggest concern is, can I retire, and can I retire in high inflation? So let's go through this real quick. Now, what I want to do is let's start with inflation before we go through the details of the client. So inflation is their biggest concern. And so what I want to do is I want to go back to the highest inflationary environment that we all remember, which is the 1970s to the 1980s. Now, there were some other high inflationary environments, but I want to use the 70s and 80s because that's, for most of us who are pre-retired or retired, or even for myself, born in 1985, when it comes to history and learning about the stock market, the 70s and 80s are really what's talked about when it comes to inflation, and specifically 1970 to 1980. And if you look between 1970 and 1980, the average inflation rate for that decade was 8.43%. Now, you had years where the inflation rate was 4, and you had years where the inflation rate, especially in 1980, was 13.5%. 13.5%. That's incredible. So what I want to do is I want to look at a scenario for the next 30 years for this client with an average inflation rate of 8.43. Now, I normally use 3% for inflation because if you look at the 107-year average for inflation, so go back 107 years, the average inflation rate is 3.29. But I'm going to use 8. I want to go well above the average to show you, can this couple retire with $1 million, and what does that look like, all right? So specifically, we have two 65-year-old, it's a 65-year-old couple. Jay's income is $2,900 a month, that's Social Security. M's income is $1,200 a month, that's Social Security. And Jay gets a pension of $428. It's a joint pension, so if he passes away, the $428 goes to M, and she's able to carry that pension on throughout her life. Now, keep in mind, I don't know if I make this very clear. They're both on Social Security. They have a joint pension. Let's say that Jay passes away first. We're going to lose M's Social Security, but the way their pension is set up, she's going to get his Social Security and the pension. Okay, so that's joint. So if you have a pension, make sure you look at all the options, the survivor benefit options, to make sure that your spouse is going to inherit a portion of that pension if you retire, or I'm sorry, well, I guess if you are retired, if you pass away early, okay? So in assets, they have they got a little over $1 million, actually $1,035,000. Biggest concern is inflation. That is their big, they said it probably 45 times on our Zoom call. And expenses are $75,000 a year, of which $54,000 is made up of Social Security and their pension. So they're able to make up almost 2/3 of their expenses with Social Security, but on the money that they have to take out of their retirement investments, remember, we're going to give it an 8% inflationary rocket ship to the moon, okay? So hang on right there. We're going to go through, can I retire at 65 with $1 million and high inflation? Can I retire at 65 with $1 million and endure high inflation? That's what we've been talking about today, and that's what we're going to go through here on the board, all right? So we've got a male and a female couple. They're 65 years old. We're going to look at this in 10-year batches. So 65 to 75, 75 to 85, and 85 to 95. So a 30-year time period taking out retirement income and enduring high inflation. Now remember, we're using the inflation, the average inflation rate between from 1970 to 1980, which is 8.43%. Now I'm just going to take it down to 8% for round numbers, but we're looking at a high inflation decade to give this couple confidence going into retirement, because we're probably going to see some sort of high inflation because of COVID, supply chains, and low employment. Remember, the Phillips rule says this: anytime we have low unemployment, we normally have higher inflation. That's because you have less workers, so employers have to pay their employees more to get good talent and to keep good talent, which pushes wages up. Those employers, they don't just take a loss, they pass that pricing power over to the consumer who's buying the goods, hence inflation. So we have low unemployment, higher inflation. So let's look at that over the next 10, 20, and 30 years. So we have a 65-year-old couple. They need $20,664 annually off of their investments. We're going to do 8% inflation, and we're going to do 4% on the rate of return. That's the money that's staying in the market. So over 10 years, they go from $1 million to $1,295,410. Not too bad. Now, at 75 to 85, their expenses jump from $20,000 to $44,612. Again, everything else still applies. 8% inflation, 4% rate of return on the money in the market. We go from 1.2, almost 1.3 million to 1.383. So we grow about $83,000 over that 10-year period, increasing the expenses by $20,000, or really $24,000, because of that 8% inflation. Now, this is where it gets fun. We're at 1.3 million at 85. Now, I know you're probably thinking right now, I ain't gonna live that long. Well, you might. So let's look at this. We got $1.3 million, we're at 85. Our expenses have grown to $96,000, from 20 to 96. Now, I know I'm gonna get comments, they won't need that much in retirement later. I know they won't need that much, but we're going to look at it as if they do, right? Because cable bills go up, home taxes go up, bills do go up. Just because you're not traveling doesn't mean your expenses don't go up. Have you been to Costco lately? Have you seen the cost of meat? So again, 10 years, 4% rate of return, 8% inflation. Over that time period, their investments go from 1.3 to 881,182. Okay, so at 95 to have $800,000, the COLA on their Social Security will continue to increase. They're in pretty good shape. So can they retire at 65 with $1 million and endure high inflation? Yes, they can. But can you? Because here's the thing. What I don't want to see happen to you is you go into retirement, have higher expenses than this couple, have less guaranteed income, more money coming off of your investments, and you drop $500,000 from age 65 to 75 instead of like this couple at 85 to 95. Now, if you want me to put together a customized retirement income plan for you, go to my website, yourfinancialekg.com. The link is actually in the comments and the description of this video. Download the Roadmap to Retirement. It's right there on the front page. Click the little box that says, yes, I want to visit with Drew, and let's go through your retirement income plan. Because here's the thing we got to look at. In high inflationary environments, you got to watch three things. You got to watch your expenses to make sure you keep those low, or at least on a budget. Now, again, I know budget's a dirty word, but you want to keep it on a budget. You want to stay invested. In high inflationary environments, stay invested, because the best way to beat inflation is to stay in the market, okay? And the third way is to keep your taxes low. That means you need to plan now so that when you go into retirement, you're not in a tax time bomb, meaning all your money's in 401k, IRA. You want to be looking at doing some conversions. I've done videos on here in the past where I've shown clients that have more money than this doing Roth conversions and keeping their tax rate in the single digits. So you want to have a Roth conversion strategy as well, especially in a high inflationary environment. So can I retire at 65 with $1 million and endure high inflation? You bet your bottom dollar, you sure can. So hey, thank you so much for watching the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. Listen, if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit the button below to subscribe. Smash the like button if you enjoy this content. And yes, leave your questions and comments below. I do read them all and I respond accordingly. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye.